as we wait for season 11 of Vanderpump Rules, we wanted to take a look back and see what got us here.
So we're counting down the top 10 ex-VPR cast members.
Where did we last see them, and what are they up to now?
Of course, we have to get into the OGs like Jax and Stassi, who started the show and left in season 8, but we are going all the way back to season 1, starting with some iconic supporting cast members that you may not have thought about in a while. So, of course, we got to start with Laura-Leigh.
Oh my God, Laura-Leigh, the icon, the legend.
So Laura-Leigh was actually only in 3 to 4 episodes. In season 1, she was a waitress at Sir, and she was Jax's rebound right after Stassi. But boy, did she leave a mark on this season. Considering season 1 was actually only 8 episodes, she was actually in half of the episodes. She went to Juilliard. She was trying to be an actress. She actually was in Gossip Girl right before she came onto the show. I know, I thought it was after.
Oh, yeah.
And there was the very infamous hookup in the bathroom between Jax and Laura-Leigh while they were working at Sir. So she definitely left her mark. What do you remember about Laura-Leigh most?
I mean, you're right. She definitely left her mark. Pint size would be kind of like the first word that comes to mind when I think about Laura-Leigh. She was like this like tiny woman, but like what a force of nature. Like she really she was able to really like combat with Jax. She was really able to combat with Stassi.
Yeah.
She really held her own in those arguments, which I think is like super impressive. Obviously, you know, we were kind of seeing her at an interesting time in her life where she was, you know, a struggling waitress that wanted to be an actress. She was going through her own issues. So I think her departure from the show, I always felt like it was like a good thing.
Yeah,
just
for
because
sure.
You know, the world with like substance abuse issues of reality TV is not always a great mix, unfortunately. So
no, definitely.
Yeah, I think that was for the best.
So yeah, for those who may not remember, Laura-Leigh came in at the time and like actually in the first 5 minutes, she's like, "Hi, I'm an ex-meth addict." So she struggled with like substance abuse. And she actually relapsed like with alcohol early on in like her episodes, like while she was talking to Jax. And like I think to Jax it was just kind of like this fun fling and like they were doing all these scandalous things. And he definitely just kind of wanted to get back at Stassi. Laura-Leigh was a lot more invested in him than he was in her. So it definitely was like very problematic, especially upon rewatching it. There's so many just like troubling things in this relationship. Like I'm glad that it was short-lived because I really don't think that it would have gone well for her. Even like, the way that Jax just like was so hot and cold with her, like he was all about her for a few days because this was fun and exciting, and then all of a sudden he's just like, "I love Stassi, like stop talking to me, go away." So we last saw her in a scene with Lisa. She came back in after, like you said, putting Jax in his place and kind of yelling at him and saying, "You're a bad person. Stassi's a bad person. You couldn't even be a man enough to break up with me. You just kind of ghosted me." And then she's leaving because she has her big break in Hollywood. She's going to be in a movie, and she said that she's going to be the counterpart of Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah.
And then she leaves, and Lisa's like, "Wow, great for her. It's so good." And then the movie comes out. We find out that it's We're the Mothers, which is a really funny movie. But she has like a very short scene. I think she played like a stripper.
Yes. So she was technically a counterpart to Jennifer Aniston's character. They were both playing similar roles in the film.
That's true.
So she wasn't wrong about that. I think it was just like the, you know, grandioseness of it, of like, I'm going to star in a film opposite Jennifer Aniston. That kind of like was maybe a little bit misleading.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, what is she up to now? It was actually a little bit hard to find like that much information on her, but it seems like she did actually go on to have a couple more credits to her name. The most recent one being in 2019, where she was on Blue Blood, I think. Yeah, Blue Blood. Yeah. She was also in a film called Silver Lake with Andrew Garfield. I did watch a trailer and I didn't see her in it, so it's probably like a supporting role of sorts. But, you know, she's still doing her thing, being in movies and short films and all of that. Looks like she's living in New York. And she still has her dog, her dog named Halo, that like she brought to Kristen's party.
Oh my God, amazing. We love that.
And she looks the exact same.
Yeah, does she? Oh my God, that's incredible. Yeah, well, she looked so young at the time too. Like she felt like such a baby face.
So she was
that
super young.
Doesn't surprise me too much. Oh, was she?
I
like
believe
how old
she was
she?
22.
Oh wow, yeah.
Which is and at the time Jax was like 33.
Yeah.
Which made like their interactions even more troubling, that he so willy-nilly went into a relationship with a recovering addict and just didn't think anything about it.
Yeah.
So,
should have been our first sign that just something was up with Jax. Something was wrong with Jax.
yeah, for sure. But, she gave us some really great scenes. They were super iconic. And
Yeah.
they also gave us Stassi's mean text to her where she said, "Nobody liked you but me, and now everyone hates you and thinks you're disgusting." So,
Oh, Nelly. Season 1 Stassi really was something.
she really was.
Well, that nicely brings us to the other rebound of season 1, which is Frank Lily. He was Stassi's rebound for Jax. He was also one of the bartenders that was working at Sir at the time. And he's allegedly the person that it's confirmed that he was the person that told Stassi that Jax had gotten somebody pregnant, I believe a stripper pregnant in Las Vegas. And so basically he kind of like begins this relationship with Stassi. We see a good amount of him as well in those first few like the first part of the season. But he does leave after episode 7. First he gets fired from Sir because this was super interesting. So he got fired from Sir because he was charging people double the amount for double martinis.
Yeah.
And so it comes out that he's charging like $30 a martini, and
instead of just an extra shot, he was like double charging them
as if it was like they were getting 2 martinis. And like Lisa is like incredulous because she's like, that's not what a double martini is, right? And then when
honestly, maybe he did it.
Well, that's just it. Like, I genuinely don't think that he did. And then at the end of the scene where he's being fired, he's like, "I can't believe you're firing me. Like, I see the sales at the end of the night. Like, I'm one of the highest earning bartenders." And I'm like, the reason that you're the highest earning bartender is because you're double charging people. And most people are probably just too drunk to like let on to like understand that they're being double charged for their drinks.
Well, my favorite part of that interaction is because I watched that episode because it's actually the same episode with all these Laura-Leigh things. So like all the more reason why season 1 is just like the epitome of reality TV. But he also then told this person who was a customer who was getting mad at him, like, "Why are you double charging me?" He called him a peasant. He said, "If you can't afford to drink here, like, then you shouldn't. You should go back to your ugly girlfriend." And then the best part, he threatened to atomic wedgie him and pull his underwear over his head, which he later tells to Christy's parents as if this is like this like grand, and he's like such a badass for like saying this.
Yeah, exactly. Like really like showing off in front of Stassi's parents, which by the way, it was his first time meeting them. And like he literally just gotten fired. This is like, your 23-year-old daughter dating this like 30-something-year-old man.
Was he also in his 30s?
I think so. I'm pretty sure he was like around Jax's age.
Oh gosh, why are these men just so awful?
I know. And so then actually after like meeting Stassi's parents, luckily actually goes pretty well for the two of them. But they then do have a fight later in the episode where basically Frank is like complaining about the fact that Stassi like gets him to do all this stuff for her, and she's like, "But you offer to do these things for me, like you offer to pick me up, you're always happy to do these like little things, like I don't understand why you're yelling at me and like upset with me for like the fact that like you do things for me by your own like decisions."
He was so horrible to her, honestly.
He really
like
was. I think he was like on a bit of like he was a bit of on one, right? Like at the time, like there must have been something going on because it's just like picking fights for like stupid reasons and like getting to the point of like breaking up with somebody. And basically they have a fight in front of her apartment and he walks away and we never see him again. We don't even see him technically in the reunion. Like he doesn't come back. I think he might have been in like a Secrets Revealed, one of the like deleted scenes. Though technically that's not the last that we actually hear from Frank on the franchise, because we then hear about Frank a couple seasons later in the reunion of season 3 when it's revealed why Stassi has had such an issue with Sheena that year. And it's because of Sheena's kind of like relationship with Frank and how she's kind of like taken this sex tape that he's brought to Sir and like apparently allegedly, she's shown it around, she's laughed at it. She allegedly told him that he should sell it to TMZ. And so that's the big reason that Stassi's been so upset with Sheena, and by association, been so upset with Katie for her friendship with Sheena that year. So Frank continues to live on in the Vanderpump Rules franchise after his departure.
Yeah, it was so crazy too because like I do really remember like the end of season 2, Stassi and Sheena are kind of friends again. And like Stassi is even at like Sheena's engagement. That's at Lisa Vanderpump's house. And then you start season 3 and they're not friends anymore and they like hate each other. And like you're so confused over what happened.
Yeah.
And they never say any of this until I guess the reunion where it comes out that this is actually the reason why.
Yeah.
Did they say it was Frank explicitly, or I think they were like one of her ex-boyfriends and then like it later came out that it was Frank?
That's just it. Like multiple times she refers to it as like my ex-boyfriend after Jax.
Right.
Or like things like that. So it's like or she'll like later on, it was watching her in season 4 as well. In season 4 she mentions like my ex-boyfriend that I had after Jax. So it's a lot of like very much like if you read between the lines you're gonna know who it is. And also like the fact that, you know, he walked into Sir, he like was talking to like if some random dude walked into Sir and talked to Sheena and was like, hey, do you want to see this thing, it would probably be a bit of a different relationship than if like somebody that she knew had walked into Sir and been like, hey, do you want to see this thing?
That's and like didn't Lisa end up paying him for it?
She did, yeah.
Like,
so
he essentially blackmailed Lisa.
Yeah, he was like kind of like extorting her for it. And so like, well, technically I think he was extorting Stassi because Lisa found out what he wanted when he wanted like $900 or whatever, and then Lisa basically just like paid him cash. And like that kind of also like led to some issues between Stassi and Lisa as well, because Stassi was like super upset that you paid him cash because then there's no paper trail of it to like confirm that you've paid for it. And then also like there was no like contract of like I sign over the rights to this thing to be distributed like this, will that be in the ownership of Lisa Vanderpump, like, which is what you would probably like, you know, if you're like licensing like photos or videos or things in the real world, like you do have to have those kind of documents to kind of protect yourself. And I don't know if that would usually like constitute like something that you would do for a sex tape of like a newly reality TV star, but I can understand why Stassi would be upset about it.
Yeah, that's wild,
sensitive
man.
material.
Like, that's awful. I feel like he already came off so bad in the show, and then like he just continued to get worse. Like to do that, like you're really scum at that point. Yeah. Like that's so terrible. And he clearly waited a couple seasons to see like if the show would get big and if Stassi would like become a big enough person that it would be worth something.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh. Yeah, I know. It's well, and the good thing is, I think karma has come for him. The really like, so if you look on the internet, Frank has completely like disappeared. Apparently his last Facebook post was from 2017. He does not have Instagram, or if he does, it's not underneath his name. Like it's not possible to find him. I even searched like LinkedIn. I was like in the off chance like there might be something there. I could not find him. And so it's been reported that in 2017 he moved down to San Diego and was working out as a bartender there. And then the last that we hear of him was on Stassi's podcast. Some fans had come up to her at Sir, and they had said that he was working at a deli in New York, and that was in like 2018. So really, like he's very much kind of like off the face of the earth in our world, at least. And we just really don't know what happened to Frank Lily, which is kind of pretty interesting.
That's so funny. Well, yeah. He can stay there.
Riddance. Yeah, exactly. You can stay gone.
Well, moving on to other first season cast members, but actually this one went beyond the first season. This is Mike Shay. And he was Sheena's boyfriend, then fiance, then husband, then ex-husband, all on the show. So we really saw like this entire relationship kind of, well, not begin, but like middle and then end.
Yeah.
So the last that we saw him was season 5. So they got married in season 3. It was like the high point of their relationship. Then you don't really see him much after that. Season 5, he is not really in a lot. He is at the studio a lot. Like that's what Sheena was kind of saying. Season 5 is also the season that Katie and Schwartz got married. So that was kind of like the big storyline for a lot of it. And it kind of allowed Sheena to just be like, oh, he's at the studio, and no one to really like ask that many questions. And then the last episode of season 5, after the wedding, we see Sheena drive to Lisa's house and she's crying. And then she tells Lisa that actually like Shay has been lying to her. And 3 months after they got married, she found out that he had a pill problem. And recently he had just like drained like $7,000 out of their bank account. And it's kind of like shocking because like you started to see like little bits and pieces of that starting to happen. I don't know if you remember your reaction when you saw that the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I remember my exact reaction, but I definitely remember being like pretty shocked. Like, I think the shocking part for us as the audience wasn't knowing that they were having relationship troubles. Like, they had relationship troubles like throughout their relationship. And in season 4, you know, they start to discuss it. In season 5, they discuss it a little bit, but really it is quite hidden. Finding out that like the bank account has been
Yeah.
drained is always the part that like really gets to me, just because I know that like Sheena was working so hard. Like, she was working as a waitress. She was trying to like get a career going in Hollywood. And she was on this show, and like she was probably like the breadwinner primarily for the couple.
Yeah,
And to
she
just
was.
like to put in all that money and like the time and the effort to like do that, and then for it to just be gone, and like it's so
Yeah.
devastating in so many ways.
Yeah, and you do find out that they didn't have a prenup as well. So I think she had to like split half their bank account. You do see him after that again, though. There's a scene where like they're at their apartment and she basically divorces him on camera, which is also pretty rough. And he's just kind of saying how much he loves her, and it's like not a fun scene to watch. Then we see him again because they bring him back for the season 5 reunion.
Yeah,
which is just like, you know, as all this Scandival stuff is happening, like I really kind of like I forgot that we really did see the dissolution and like just like the really raw emotions of a lot of relationships on this show. Like to bring, he's not really a reality person. Like he was on the show because of Sheena, and now he's being brought onto this reunion to basically get grilled by all of Sheena's friends, which makes sense. You know, they're her friends. They're gonna try to hold him accountable, but like
for sure,
it was just so uncomfortable for both of them. So that was the last time that we saw him.
Yeah, I do think it's crazy that they brought him onto the reunion. Like, I think it's one thing to kind of like film like this scene of the two of you in your apartment and like ending your relationship. And obviously, like, they picked up cameras for that. Like, they specifically probably like set up that scene so that they could get that footage. And I think I'd heard, and I don't know how true this is, but I think I had heard that they had like set that up specifically because it was like, okay, Sheena, you haven't been honest about your relationship this entire season. Like, you need to like give us something, because this is like, we're not going to be able to bridge these gaps of like you ending Katie and Schwartz's wedding, telling Lisa like, I still have butterflies in my stomach, and then season 6 all of a sudden we're actually divorced. Like, I think the audience would have been able to like pick up what happened, but like I think Bravo was kind of like requesting that they had to have this kind of like ultimate breakup scene. But to bring him onto the reunion is just harsh. Like, that was
and it was hard too, because like the boys all really liked him. Like, they were all really good friends. So like, even I think like Andy asked Jax, and Jax is like, you know, they're both really good people, and it just didn't work out. And like, it's probably the nicest we've seen Jax be to like another person. But the girls were definitely more like, you know, wanting accountability from him. Something that was interesting is he did say that, you know, like the time that Sheena brought this up on camera, like he was already sober 6 months, and he feels that she had kind of brought it up to humiliate him, and like he feels like she kind of threw him under the bus. And she doesn't deny it. She basically says like, well, yeah, you know, you hurt me so badly that like you hurt me, I screw you over. So,
but at the same time, like if he did like empty her bank account and he like left her, like, and this would potentially like ruin her ability to come back next season as a full-time cast member. Doing that scene was going to be something that she needed to do to secure her spot for the next season. I can kind of understand the justification for it, if that's maybe what really was happening behind the scenes, and she just doesn't get to say that, right?
Yeah, and I think it was hard for both of them, but I think it was ultimately good for both of them to come out onto the reunion, to be able to say their sides kind of like to each other and to the audience. So where he is now, he's quite private. It does look like he's like a DJ and rapper in California. His Instagram is private now, but I think at one point it wasn't, and he posts a lot about like his nieces and nephews and seems to like just be really family oriented. What was interesting though is Sheena's been asked about him in the past, and apparently they do still talk a little bit, which is nice because they ended on such like a tumultuous note. And he reached out to her like when she had her miscarriage a few years ago, and then she also told him before she announced her pregnancy with Brock.
Aw.
just as like a courtesy, which is really
Yeah,
nice. So
that's so nice.
yeah, I'm glad that they're able to be kind of like
In
in
a
a nice
better,
place with each other because
yeah,
yeah, they went through so much.
they did. And they were, they were very young when they got married. So like it makes sense that they need to kind of like, they're both in different places now, and hopefully they're both in better places now. So
Yeah, and they were high school sweethearts too. Like
yeah.
they, I don't
Oh.
think they really knew who they were, and I think Shay was also a lot more of a homebody, and like Sheena wanted to go out and party. And I remember like one of the plot points too was like he was trying to get sober, and she's like, "Oh, but you can have like a drink, right? Like you can like."
Yeah. Oh, that was unfortunate though.
Yeah, so like I don't think their
Yeah.
lifestyles would be conducive longer term.
Yeah.
So that's Mike Shay.
I love
Sheena
it.
still goes by his last name.
Amazing. I mean, Sheena Shea, it really just rolls off the tongue, so I totally get it.
Definitely. So moving right along to some of the later seasons, we're going to unveil who made the rest of our list. But before we get to that, please give us a like and subscribe if you like the Real Couchwives content. We love bringing it to you. We are so close to getting to 1,000, to getting to BravoCon. So please help us get there. Join the Couchwives community. We are so thankful for you.
Well, I love that little veil that you put in there, Carrie, because I feel like that might be a little bit of a clue of who our next person is.
I didn't even do that on purpose.
Did not.
Let's say that I did, though.
Let's say that you did, because it's perfect. Our next person is Vail Bloom, who is on season 3. She actually joins kind of halfway through the season. She starts as of episode 7, and she comes in as the new hostess working at Sir. Carrie, what do you remember of Vail? Like top of your tongue, kind of like remembrances.
So I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember a lot about Vail, but what I do remember really well is her super awkward date with Peter. And that is like pretty much all I remember about her. And she was like an actress, I want to say as well.
Yeah. Hey, 2 really good. So far, so good. So far, so good. Definitely, I feel like I remember her the most for her like magnificent like mop of like blonde hair.
Oh,
I was always like so astonished. I was like, how are you literally doing that? That looks incredible. But yeah, so she comes in season 3, episode 7. She does instantly catch both the attention of Jax, of course, and Peter.
Who doesn't?
Of course, literally. Like
I feel like to work at Sir, it's like, would Jax want to basically hook up with you?
Yeah, exactly.
If so, you can
one
work
requirement for the job. Yeah, exactly. If you at least meet Jax's standards, then you should be fine. And actually, interestingly, so she like walks up, she meets Jax. Jax is the first person that she meets when she comes onto the show. And he literally, as soon as she walks away, he's like, I want to sleep with her probably. Like, let's be honest here.
Where is Jax in life at this point?
Like, so season 3, he's, past the Stassi years. He's kind of in like the Carmen Tiffany years.
Oh, right.
And that's what kind of really gets like super messy about like season 3. And while like he does try to like kind of approach Vail, he like does it so fairly unsuccessfully, just because I think she sees through him quite quickly.
He also has 2 girlfriends.
He already had 2 girlfriends that he was trying to juggle at that point. She was seen as like a little bit pretentious, I think, on her season. She mentioned a lot that she had like gone to Princeton. She felt like quite, maybe like a little bit like too good for this show.
It was confusing. I remember her like not, it was kind of like, I don't feel like she wanted to be there, and it was a little bit like, why are you here then?
Well, and even Lisa, like after her interview with her, like was basically like, she's way too good for this place. Like, I don't know what she's doing here. She's not going to last a second. But she lasts throughout the entire season. She makes it to the finale. She's in the 10-year anniversary Sir photo shoot that they do. This is the one where they go to like the pink motel and they all dress up as like the 1950s kind of like girls and boys, and
that was so
very
fun.
like greased lightning. And then she's technically in like the last like season finale party as well, but like really she hasn't been like a massive character beyond being like a love interest for Jax and Peter. Like she really didn't do too much in the season, so she doesn't even come to the reunion that year.
Right.
It was kind of interesting because we talked about Laura-Leigh and her substance issues. So right off the bat, basically in I think her first episode, Vail also admits to the fact that like she's had some substance abuse issues as well. She had been an actress on The Young and the Restless. She'd been on from like 2007 to 2010. So she kind of like did that. She was actually nominated for a Daytime Emmy for her role on The Young and the Restless. And so then she kind of like, has these substance abuse issues. She has to leave The Young and the Restless, and she's kind of like working as like an actress, kind of like floundering a little bit. So in 2014, when Vanderpump Rules is filming, that's when she comes on here. Obviously, like the role doesn't really work out super well for her, so she goes on and like does a few other things. Like she's continued to work as an actress to this day, so she still is acting, which is kind of cool. She's also had 2 children. One was born, I think, in 2018 and one in 2020.
Nice.
And yeah, it seems like she has like a nice like little life for herself. Like I did stalk her on Instagram a little bit. And it just looks like super cute and adorable. So I think she's doing a great job.
Oh, good. Love that for her.
And I think she actually came back to The Young and the Restless just this year. I think she's like reprised her role, which is super exciting too.
Oh, no way. Full circle.
So good for her. We love that.
You go, Glen Coco.
We love to see it. Another person who you probably will remember for her time on Vanderpump Rules, though similarly kind of had a similar trajectory to Vail, I would say, is Faith Stowers. I'm sorry, my pronunciation of names is not great. So Faith comes on as a recurring character with Lala in season 4. Faith is working as a server while Lala is the hostess. Lala definitely kind of like, comes in, hits the ground running, very much instantly understands what she needs to do to like get onto this show. And Faith is just kind of like her friend and like James's friend, kind of like in the background. She does date
Max, right?
Yeah, Lisa's son. So that was kind of cool to like get to see, and I was like remember that a little bit. But for the most part, like her time on season 4 is like super chill. Like, do you remember her at all from that season?
No, the only thing I remember, and like correct me if I'm wrong, is like I feel like her and Lala were at Lisa's house because like she was dating Max and then like Lala was with James.
Yeah.
And then they were like topless in the pool.
Yes.
And that was like weird. And that's literally all I remember.
I mean, that's a pretty good accurate remembrance of what happened there as well. They did have the opportunity to go skinny dipping in Lisa Vanderpump's pool, which, like, I guess if you got the opportunity, you have the shot, you take the shot, right?
I don't know if that's a shot I would take. I would swim in the pool.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Fair. I mean, if you're young and you're 20-something and everybody else is doing it, but, fair enough. They also then do go on the cast trip that year to Hawaii.
Faith went on the trip?
Faith was also on the trip, yeah. Because like Faith went, Max went, Lala went, James went, like everybody except for Kristen basically went, which is like the moral of most Vanderpump Rules. Like if you're taking a bet on somebody, bet on Kristen not being invited to an event.
Oh, Kristen.
An event or a getaway. But yeah, so that's her kind of like appearance in season 4. I think she's like a background character in season 5. Like she's not even like credited as being on the season. She might have been working there, and I feel like we see her in the background like a couple times, but she's not like a character at all. She does come back in season 6, and that's kind of the last that we see of Faith. So she goes back in season 6, and the premiere episode is the masquerade party that Sheena is throwing as like a little post-divorce hurrah, if you will. And this is the masquerade party where it is revealed that Jax has cheated on Brittany, and Faith is the person that he has cheated on her with. And, Faith basically reveals this to James at the party, and then it really like spreads like wildfire throughout the party. Schwartz famously says, I would cover for him if he did it, but I don't believe he did it. So it's like, great.
Oh, yeah.
Schwartz wanted to throw that in. And then, unfortunately, that's kind of the last that we see of Faith on the show. There's been different reports of like, would the cast not film with her after that? Would she not film with the cast after that? Like, it's kind of unclear for us right now. Like, I did some research into it, and I really couldn't find like a definitive answer one way or another. And unfortunately, this story continues to get like a little bit more breadth after that, because in season 6, James has stolen the recordings that Faith has made of Jax talking to her about Brittany after they've hooked up. And, this spurs like a massive fight between Brittany and Jax actually, it's quite enjoyable. I would definitely recommend going back to season 6, episode 5 and 6. Quite good TV. to just watch all these like very drunk people like fight with one another.
Wasn't that like the two parties? Like there was the party at like Brittany's house with the girls, like because they were all rallying like with her. It wasn't that one.
No, it wasn't that one. There is that one as well, but no. So they decide. So Jax and Brittany, like, they get back together. They decide to do a housewarming, and they have their party, and like this is revealed. Ariana like basically gets like a hold of the recording. I was gonna say videotape, but it's not a videotape. Not even an audio tape. It's a recording. It's on a phone. Yeah, so but like it just evolves. So they do because Jax and Brittany and Tom and Katie are living in the same like building.
Yes,
they move over. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's like technically two different parties.
So I guess maybe it wasn't two different parties, but I remember there's
location.
Like there's all the girls huddling around Brittany.
Yes,
and then there's the boys.
Yes. Okay, yes, I see
like,
what you mean. It's evolved into two parties. Yeah. And then Ariana goes and fights with Tom at Katie's and Tom's house. And anyways. So that is unfortunately kind of the end of Faith's time on Vanderpump Rules, though she is yet again brought up, and her name is brought up in season 7, and that is because James, just had to bring it up one more time and mention in one of his lyrics.
Song.
Yeah, does anybody remember the time that Jax blanked Faith?
It was so catchy though.
It was very catchy, but like, James, come on, dude.
I know. Like, poor taste, right in front of Brittany. That was pretty mean.
Yeah, pretty unfortunate. So that is unfortunately the last that we see of Faith on this series. She does go on to do some pretty interesting things though. Carrie, are you familiar with any of her kind of like post Vanderpump Rules filmography?
I totally forgot that she was on the challenge. So we love the challenge here, and if you want us to talk about the challenge, we'll totally do that. I don't remember if she was hooking up with Johnny Bananas or Kyle, but I know that she like aligned herself with one of those. Like there was two new girls. But yeah, that was pretty funny to see, but that's really all I know.
Yeah. So she did. She switched Bravo for MTV. She went on X on the Beach actually first. And then that's how she got onto the challenge, which is always kind of like the MTV pipeline, right? You have to start on something to get to the next one.
Oh my God. Can the challenge please start taking Bravo celebrities? That would be so funny.
Oh my God, that would be so funny. Just for like a little chaos. Just like throw in some extra chaos. They won't be good at the challenges.
Sheena like trying to climb ropes and stuff and like doing all those crazy challenges.
And trying to do like master manipulation of the entire house to like work in her favor. Like I think it would be really hilarious. One interesting thing that I did discover in her kind of like filmography is that she actually was in 2022. She was in another film by Mr. Randall Emmett. He was a producer of one of the films that she did.
I mean, that makes sense because she was friends with Lala.
Yeah, exactly. So she has to kind of continue to do a few different things afterwards. She did give birth to a son also in 2020. And now I think it sounds like she's really just like kind of working on like being an entrepreneur, obviously like this influencer lifestyle as well, like just trying to like, make some money. And yeah, actually I did stalk her Instagram last night as well, and she's actually on her way to Costa Rica, so I'm very jealous.
Oh, that's fun. Like with her fam?
Maybe, I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I didn't do enough stalking. She's on a flight.
In there.
She's on a flight. She's going to Costa Rica. I want to be her.
Live reporting.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that brings us to our next person, who is Billie Lee. Carrie, do you remember the first time that you would have seen Billie Lee in Vanderpump Rules? Or like first like official kind of like welcoming of Billie Lee?
Oh my gosh. Like only like the really big moments stand out, because like I've done a lot of rewatches of seasons like 1 to 3, but not many past that. I definitely want to go back and see them. So unfortunately the ones that stand out to me is like the girls' night debacle. Like kind of more of the scandalous type of storylines, but I do remember her being well received to the cast. Like the cast really liked her, but I don't remember how she was introduced.
Fair. So in season 6, she's like first introduced, like she was working as a hostess at SUR, and she kind of like comes out and like tells her like story at the Pride event at SUR during Pride in season 6. And
we love a SUR Pride.
We love a SUR Pride. Everybody does. And so she kind of like comes out, she tells her story about being transgender. She's the first openly transgender character that we have on Vanderpump Rules. And yeah, I think for the most part, like she's pretty well received in the first season. Most of the cast is like pretty welcoming, though she does pretty quickly kind of like more become friends with like Ariana and Tom Sandoval and James Kennedy. I would say that that's kind of like more her group of friends, especially just because like Stassi and Kristen basically make a joke about her going out with Ariana's brother Jeremy, and
Right.
kind of like talking about how he's creepy and how she should be careful. And unfortunately, that doesn't bode too well, and that really is where kind of like the tensions begin to brew. And then in season 7, like it does unfortunately continue to like just like the tensions mount. They do have a girls' night at Sir, and they do not include the only trans person at Sir, and so it becomes a bit of a big debacle. And so unfortunately, the last that we see of Billie Lee is also on season 7 at the reunion. She does come in for a little bit of a portion, but again, like never to be seen again after that, unfortunately. There's always going to be, especially with Bravo, like there's different stories about like, did I leave? Did I quit? Like, who knows?
Right.
Billie herself has kind of like said a couple different versions of the story. So like, I don't think we're going to kind of necessarily know the truth. But that's just classic for almost anybody on Bravo. So
Yeah.
And then for where she is now, so she's kind of gone on to do a few different things. She's been working she's had like a couple blogs. She worked for BuzzFeed for a little bit.
Oh, no
She's
way.
done like, yeah, she's done some like episodes here and there of different like TV shows and stuff, like different like reality TV shows and stuff. But she's also become a stand-up comedian in the last year.
Oh, no
So
way.
that's kind of like her new thing. And yeah, and I'm sure you can kind of imagine where we've seen her most recently since
Yes, I do remember
yeah.
she did appear in the Scandal drama where
Oh yeah.
she posted a picture of like Ariana's dog that she was like babysitting,
Yeah,
but she said it was
Maya.
for Tom or something, and basically she
Yeah.
wouldn't pick sides, and in doing so
Yes.
it's essentially siding with Sandoval, and then
Yeah.
like Kurt and Kristen got into it, and
Yeah.
it was a thing.
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a thing. Yeah, so there were some photos that kind of like came out at the beginning of Scandival of like Sandoval hanging out with Billie Lee,
Right.
and everybody was like, "Oh my God, she's back! Like, what does this mean?" There was an attempt from Ariana's side to be like, "Oh no, she's just like helping us take care of the dog. Like, there's no like
That's
animosity
true.
here." Though we say that, and Ariana is no longer following Billie Lee on Instagram. So there might be some contention there. And Billie Lee actually just this past weekend was putting on her stories a little happy second 40th birthday to Sandoval, and was doing a little bit of like a story festival, story fest from his from his 40th birthday. Which was at,
Really?
yeah, Tom and Ariana's house. Yeah, so that's kind of like the most recent that we've seen of
Tom's
Billie
having his
Lee.
birthday at their house.
Yeah, I know, because Ariana would never let him do that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I honestly, I know that when she was filming, some people were like, I wonder if she'll be back, mainly
Yeah.
because she'll be one of the only people who will be willing to
Yeah.
film with Sandoval. But, Ariana made it very clear that if you are friends with him, then you're not friends with me. And like,
Yeah.
she drew a line in the sand, and she, said it to Schwartz. And then clearly, I guess Billie Lee chose her side.
Yeah.
Maybe she thinks this is what will get her back on the show. I don't know.
Maybe she thinks that Sandoval's a better friend. I don't know. I have a hard time. I just feel like I hate Sandoval so much that I have a hard time feeling like I could ever like choose him over Ariana.
No, but that's the
to
thing.
their
It's
own.
like, oh, and if she does do that, like it's not going to set her up well, and she's not going to be well received.
Definitely going to be a contentious re-entry on Vanderpump Rules if she comes back next season.
And we're totally speculating this. Like I haven't even seen any speculation that she might be on the show.
Yeah.
But like just talking about it makes me feel like it's not something I would want to watch. Like I would not want to watch people fighting over like whether or not they should be friends with Sandoval.
Yeah, exactly. Like
you should not at the end.
we all know that we shouldn't be friends with Sandoval.
Yeah,
is the moral of the story.
Moving us right along.
Yeah.
To some other kind of controversial, I guess, figures.
Definitely, without a doubt,
was Dayna. So we are choosing out of all of the season 8 cast when they did like a little bit of a season 8 shakeup and brought in some like new cast members. One of them was Dayna. Do you remember when you first saw Dayna?
Yes. Yes, I actually do, because I think this is a trick question. Because we first meet Dayna at the Mondrian in season 7 when they're doing like a little guys' night. What's the guys' night for? Like, is it just for fun? Like, just for shits and giggles?
I want to say that it was for Jax or something.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't really remember. I just remember that it was a guys' night at the Mondrian.
At the Mondrian of all places. I know that like historic place just keeps on like popping up all over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they basically like saw a group of girls and they went back to the hotel, and Dayna was one of the girls, and you see her having like a dance off with Sandoval.
Yeah.
And then you also see her going into a bathroom with Peter.
Yep.
She has like adamantly denied that anything happened with Peter, like on podcasts, on the show. She said that she had a boyfriend at the time and nothing had happened. She just had to go to the washroom or something. So yeah, that was I totally forgot.
That's the truth.
I know. I hope that's the truth too.
I hope that's the truth for her.
But she did have a really good line where she's like, "I think I'd remember hooking up with a pirate."
Fair enough.
But yeah, so she actually had an appearance in season 7.
Yeah.
But like I don't even know if they put a name, or she was just kind of like one of the girls like at this night. And then essentially she had become friends with like the Toms, and like she had just moved to LA, and she told them she was looking for work. She became a server at Tom Tom, and then I guess did really well and ended up moving to Sir and being on the cast of season 8. All of the OG girls really liked her except for Sheena, who really did not like her.
No, really adamantly disliked her.
Yeah, and like really wanted to make a full circle moment where you would just like bully the new girl and make her like shine the glasses and stuff. Very much seemed like the reason Sheena didn't like her is because Dayna was actually kind of in like a situationship with Max, who was one of the other new people, who was a general manager of Tom Tom, who Sheena had also hooked up with. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It kind of seemed like they were trying to set him up as like the next Jax, because like his whole storyline was that he like hooked up with all these girls, but like, you know, just sweet talked all of them. Sheena gave him an Apple Watch.
Yeah. I mean, just look at him. Like, there's no way that he could ever be the next Jax. Jax was at least like so good looking in season 1.
Yeah,
at least, like relatively good in season 1.
And it's like, yeah, like Jax was a lot of things, and we've talked about this a lot, and we're going to talk about it later.
Keep on talking about it.
But like, at least Jax was a really good villain. I feel like Max was just like an F-boy, like a typical one at that. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, and then Dayna also had a fling with Brett after that, so there was like a little bit of like a love triangle. People really did not take well to the new cast members. Pretty much overall. Like, season 8 was like
general
pretty rough. I went back to watch season 8 a little bit, like some bits and pieces, to see Dayna and then to see some of the OGs that we're going to talk about shortly. And like, it was rough.
Yeah, it really was. It was trying to like kind of like grow into a new show. And sometimes you have to do that to try to create something new and like have like a little bit more longevity in the cast. But yeah, like they really missed the mark on like bringing in like 4 new people and having only one of them really like stay in the end. Like it was a bit much.
Yeah. Well, so that kind of leads us to where we've last seen her. So where we last saw her was the COVID reunion.
The infamous Zoom reunion.
The Zoom reunion where like, oh my God, that reunion too was just like everyone was just screaming, and like and sometimes they'd pan out and you just see like 12 Zoom boxes of people yelling.
Luckily at that point a lot of them were coupled up, so at least like you got like multiple people per box.
But there was still a lot of boxes.
There was a lot of
so many cast members at that point.
It was too much. Oh my God.
Yeah, so I don't know if do you remember much of Dayna like in that reunion or in that season?
Not in the reunion so much. I definitely like I just remember being baffled by her liking Max. Like I just thought that didn't make any sense. Like I was very confused. And he just seemed so awful. One thing that I remember that she did is like after she broke up with him, he would like came and like collect like a necklace or something that he'd like I said left in her house or her apartment. And so she like she went and got the necklace, and she like took it and like dragged it through like her kitty litter.
Oh yeah.
And then like dunked it in the toilet and then she like gave it back to him. I don't know if she like wiped it off so that he wouldn't know, or she was just like
full of cat litter,
cat litter, smells funny, it's like weird, and it's wet. Like, I don't understand. So it was a pretty baller move. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I was looking back to kind of see like reactions at the time, so I don't remember. Like, I didn't really understand the amount of hatred that she got. Like,
yeah,
I don't think we really got to see her personality that much, and I think the reason that I liked her a bit more is because I was listening to her podcast like a little bit after, because like she went on a little bit of Where Is She Now. Like, she is still great. She's really good friends with like Katie and Ariana, and like she's actually in a lot of their Instagram posts, like even now. Like, she's definitely part of the OG crew, like around Ariana at this time. She's been on like Katie's podcast a bunch of times. She's been on Kristen's podcast, and she like herself had come out and been like, yeah, I don't think that like, I don't know if the season did super well. Like, they didn't show a good side of me, and like I looked so like boy crazy and like all this stuff. And she's had a lot to deal with in her life. Like, she lost her mom. She had a really sad moment at the reunion where she was just kind of like saying how hard it was for her to have lost her mom, because like Sheena, in a really weird move, tried to bring what's it called, like a medium for her to talk to her mom, which was
I forgot about that. That was so bad. And like Sheena like showed up at her doorstep and was like, hey, I brought a medium to your house, would you like to meet her?
But but the worst part then is like when Dayna was like uncomfortable and said no, like you then hear Sheena shit talking her and being like, well, I asked a bunch of people, and like she's the only person who thought
everybody
that
this was a great idea.
So just an overcorrection on Sheena's part.
And Sheena had like spent all, as you say, like she had spent like the first half of the season like hazing her like so badly that like it just felt so disingenuous to do that.
It does look like it was her choice to leave the show. Like, she said that it was a hard decision, but she thinks that it was the right one. She'd been pretty open about having mental health struggles as well, especially during COVID, and I think which is like really relatable, and like she just seems like a real kind of person. I know a lot of people thought she came off as fake in the show, maybe because of the way that everything was kind of put together. But yeah, she's still in the group. Who knows if she'll be back?
Is she still doing comedy at all? Do you know?
I believe she's still doing comedy, and it seems that she's gone back to sales. She actually started in a corporate job, which is really interesting. I think she's like the only cast member who has actually come from the corporate world.
Oh, interesting.
Into this.
Oh, so super cool.
And she did that basically because when she wanted to pursue comedy full time, she needed to be able to make money on the side, and that's kind of why she went into doing that. She also had a podcast for a time. But it seems that there was only a handful of episodes. I don't think she's still doing it.
Fair enough.
So with that, we've gotten to season 8, which was a lot of people's last season. We did not know at the time.
They did not know. We didn't know. Nobody saw it coming.
Yeah, nobody saw it coming. So I guess we'll start with the infamous Mr. Jax Taylor.
Oh, Mr. Jax Taylor. What a character. What a character.
Yeah, we have a lot of episodes where we talk quite a lot about him and his villain arc. I rewatched a little bit of season 8 to kind of remember like where we last saw him and what he was like in his last season. And it was pretty rough. He was a bit of a train wreck.
Yep.
And it was his wedding season, so like you would not think that.
Yeah, I know. It's like the one season you should be like happy and like having a good time. Well, I mean, I guess ask Kyle Cook how he felt about his wedding season of Southern Summer House, so maybe we don't know.
Yeah, so it was his wedding season. He did get married. That was nice. But the whole season was kind of like him fighting with like Tom Sandoval, like demoting him from like best man to a groomsman to being uninvited to the wedding to being invited to the wedding. Towards the end of the season, there's like rivaling pool parties where like there's full on like line in the sand, like do you go to Jax and Brittany's pool party or do you go to Ariana and Tom's pool party? This is also about the time when Jax was like really angry and just kind of like sending rage texts to everyone for like no reason, and then going to the gym 4 times a day, and like kind of like tweeting or like live Instagramming about and then on the finale, he is like really distraught over like his like fights with Sandoval, and he's talking to Lisa, and he's like, these are my true friends, like this is why my show is successful. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
And Lisa's like, this is my show.
Yeah,
You better put some respect on me.
who do
Like,
you think you are? Like, I don't understand.
I kind of feel like that was the moment that that it was put into motion that he was
Yeah,
gonna
it's like
not
nail
return.
in the coffin. Like, you're done. You're done, buddy.
Like that was bad. Lisa was super pissed. And that finale too, they play like the slow Vanderpump Rules song, and like it's really just like Lisa's like, I don't know where we go from here, and like everyone hates each other. It was just like, for it to be all of their last seasons, it was like brutal. But yeah, so I kind of asked before, like, I wonder, like, do you remember pieces of this Zoom reunion?
I really just remember like the amount that he fought with Charlie, like, and like how like that of all things like was not where I was expecting the reunion to go. I was like, well, why are you guys fighting? What's going on here?
Yeah, everyone was really angry at Charlie, but I was like, no, she's like calling Jax out. Like, she's like, I thought that she was doing well, and everyone was like, shut up, Charlie. Like,
oh, it's so crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, Tom and Jax were really going at each other. But and then again, like Jax went into his like, I'm a work in progress, and then they had a really funny collage of him saying I'm a work in progress literally from season 1. And
he and Ramona like should like get a podcast called I'm a Work in Progress. Oh my god,
it's so true. And this is where it really started to get difficult, because like the group would try to give them some like constructive criticism, and like a lot of them were coming from a place of love. Like Stassi was like, you know, like it gets difficult because we're kind of scared of you guys. Like we're scared to get Jax angry, or we're scared to upset Brittany because we're, you know, saying something about Jax. And then Jax was just like, no one, you know, like I'm not, like, no one's perfect. Like, why are you guys all picking at me on me? And then Brittany goes like, oh, well, apparently our friends don't love us. Which is just like, that's what it, like, just like the victim complex of this couple had, like, at that point had just gotten like really bad. And then like even Stassi or even Lala was like, you know, Jax, like, you keep saying you're struggling, like Randall paid for you to go see someone and you didn't show up. And he's like, anyways, like Jax was just getting really mad that like anyone was basically questioning him in any way. And he had like these mutton chops too.
Yeah, I know, the bad facial hair, man. Oh
yeah. The part that I forgot happened is there's literally a scene where he is fighting with Tom and Ariana, and he's like, you know what, Ariana, like, you just bother me. Like, like, you've never liked me, I've never liked you, like, we just don't like each other, like, that's just is what it is. And I forgot about that. I forgot like how much he didn't like Ariana, because now he's like, Team Ariana, like, see, I told you, like, Sandoval sucks, like, he's the worst.
You
like,
go girls, like, knock him dead at this reunion.
Yeah, like, you're the number one guy in the group. And like, I feel like he literally just didn't even acknowledge the like vitriol that he spewed about her. Yeah, and for her so like many years. Mental health struggles.
Yeah, always calling her like a Debbie Downer, and like, yeah,
so that was a lot.
And that was the last that we saw them. Yeah, I know, like, officially at least. I know, it's so crazy. I just feel like they didn't know what was coming. Like, I don't think that they like ever thought that there was a world in which they couldn't be on this show. Yeah. And like the level that both of their egos kind of like got to get to that point where they like think like, oh, our friends don't like us, or it's my show, like whatever it is that you like think that you have to be like so high and mighty. Well, now they know.
Yeah. So then in or I think around December 2020, they put out an announcement that like they're leaving, and I feel like they also tried to spin it that they were stepping away.
Did it only happen that late?
Yeah, that's when
I'm
they
so
posted,
surprised.
or that's at least when Brittany posted. So I think Jax might have been earlier. I couldn't find his on his timeline, so he might have removed the post.
Yeah, I think it's very possible.
But Brittany still has it. Maybe he's like, I'm back. Deleting
yeah, exactly. Get rid of this. Never happened. I've been on the last 2 seasons. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And now it seems that they might be making a comeback. So yeah. What do you know about this couple now?
I know that Brittany was doing like Jenny Craig. And she was like one of the spokespeople for Jenny Craig. That's about it, honestly. Like, I feel like I just like you keep on like hearing about them like circulating in like the media, like trying to be like, oh, we're getting a TV show, oh, we're getting a thing, something's gonna happen. Like, wait for us, Scott Thomas coming.
I know, it almost feels like they're putting out like one of those like vision boards. They're like, maybe if we just like put it out into all these news outlets.
If you manifest it, that's how it will come.
Yeah. So it's actually a lot that has happened to this couple.
Oh, really?
They, of course, have had their son Cruz in April of 2021. And for the most part, it does seem to have just like done so much for them. Like Jax and Brittany have both come out and said like leaving the show was kind of a blessing, and it was like so good for their family and their mental health. And like, I think they really needed a break from it.
Yeah.
They have a podcast now called When Reality Hits. And actually I did listen to a couple of episodes, and like it was funny because Jax was saying, you know, like I was always like the villain and I was the bully and like I was just the punching bag, and like Brittany's like, yeah, but like you did a lot of things to deserve that, so like you should take some you know, responsibility.
Yeah, like oh my god, watching back any of these seasons, like I just am blown away each time. I'm like, oh yeah, Jax was such a dick. Like,
yeah, like it was bad.
oh,
We forget.
God.
And like, yes, Sandoval's horrible, but like Jax was also horrible. And like
Also
the
really
two
bad
things,
too.
two things could be true at once. And like, I just don't see like the growth from him that I feel like I see with like Kristen or like even with Stassi, and the way that they're both able to look back on their time at Vanderpump Rules and like criticize themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas like Jax is more like, he's like, yeah, you know, I said a lot of things, but like they were always true, and like I always took accountability. But it's like I don't think he did.
No, I don't think so.
So
and like,
you know,
just because you were like telling on your friends and like spreading the truth about them doesn't mean that you were always telling the truth about everything, right? Like you were ratting out Tom and Tom just every once in a while to like get the attention away from yourself.
Yeah,
that was what you were doing. Like,
well, exactly. And like I don't doubt that he's a great dad, and like they do look like they have like the cutest little family, and I'm super happy for them. And honestly, like I hope that if they do come back into the Bravo world, that it doesn't send them back to where they were before, because like that was so toxic. But yeah, so they have their podcast. They might be coming back now for this like Valley Village that we've heard about, which is, you know, who knows if that's gonna happen.
We'll see it when we believe. We'll believe it when we see it.
Jax they might be coming back to film, because Jax just posted like, here we go, with like a
little camera
emoji.
camera.
Yeah. So they're definitely hyping up some excitement. I guess they're doing something.
Yeah.
They're selling their own merch, which we talked about last episode, which is pretty funny. One thing that I didn't know is apparently Jax filmed a pilot called House of Villains, where like a bunch of like reality TV villains would compete, and like some of the alleged names here is like Heidi Montag from The Hills, Johnny Bananas from The Challenge, and like rumored host Anna Delvey.
Oh my god, what? Oh my god,
I don't know, but like if this is real, I kind of want to see it.
Yeah, like is there raw footage somewhere we could just like watch it on YouTube or something?
Yeah, so would be really curious to watch that show. And of course, the last we actually officially saw Jax and Brittany was on Watch What Happens Live, when they were asked back to be part of the speculation on Scandival and give their opinion on it. We have an episode on that and how kind of unhinged it was. If you want to go back,
it was bad,
and watch. So yeah, like looks like they're kind of back in the Bravo sphere, and we'll just wait and see what happens.
Totally, let's do it.
Which brings us to another OG who was also stirring up all kinds of drama, kind of like her entire tenure at VPR, and that is none other than Miss Kristen Dowdy.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the last we saw of her? So minus Watch What Happens Live.
Yeah, fair. I don't remember her on the season finale actually at all. Like I remember her in season 8. But I don't remember like any like particular storylines that she really had. Like it really felt like at like those last like couple seasons, like Kristen's storylines were kind of floundering. She was dating Carter, he was bad news, and like just there wasn't a lot there.
Yeah, that's actually pretty on point. So she was like very much on the outs with like the Witches of WeHo, like with Stassi and Kristen. They were like really kind of at the ends of their patience, like with her and with this friendship, and a lot of it actually was because of Carter, because Kristen would kind of spend like 2 years like crying and venting about Carter to them, and like it takes up a lot of space, you know. Like I understand Stassi and Katie's perspective. Like when you have a friend who just keeps coming to you and you're happy to help them, but like then when they just don't take your advice or like just continue to do the complete opposite. So she would say that they were like broken up, but then he would still come to everything, and like she wanted him to come to like Jackson Brittany's wedding, and like they were just kind of being like, we feel like we're growing and Kristen's just kind of staying the same, and like we don't know if this is kind of like where our paths like diverge now. So it was definitely not a good season for Kristen. She got disinvited to a lot of things, like you had said earlier. Like she wasn't included in Stassi and Beau's engagement, and she didn't go to Katie and Tom's like remarriage and wedding or whatever. So yeah, in the season finale, Stassi actually says "Witches of WeHo Denzo," and then at the reunion, the Zoom reunion that we were just talking about, they're still not friends, so they're still all like kind of fighting. And then we also find out that Kristen had hooked up with Max as well. And Dayna didn't know this. And like Dayna and Kristen were kind of friends, so Dayna was like kind of shocked.
Dear. That's so weird. Why would you do that? Gross. Kristen, come on.
Then she had like a new boyfriend, so Carter and her did eventually break up.
Successfully break up.
Yeah. And then shortly after the reunion, we find out that Kristen, along with Stassi, were actually fired because of some like racially insensitive actions against Faith, who we had talked about earlier. They had reported her to the police for a crime that she didn't do. This was also around the time of like Black Lives Matter. So she was essentially like kind of canceled at that point and not asked to return. I think she kind of like went underground for a little bit. Do you know where she's at now?
I don't. I mean, I really didn't think about Kristen probably until the story of her and Ariana popped up after the Scandal breakup happened. And I was like, I think everybody, like, so many people were reaching out to Kristen, being like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think? And then she was like, you know, obviously, like, I feel bad for Ariana. Like, and I think that had, like, I'd forgotten that Ariana and her had gotten to a better place in the TV show.
Same. So it felt really weird at first.
It felt super weird. And I was like, and then you see like them like hugging on the couch and after the breakup has happened. And it's like, wait a minute, what? You're like totally messing with my reality right now.
I know. At first it totally felt kind of like inauthentic. But like looking back at some of it, like even in episode 8, like season 8, like they definitely are friends. So yeah, I think at some point they just became friends and we just kind of like missed it.
They did. I think it happened in like season 6 or 7, and they have like an actual like heart to heart. They take some time to like go hang out together. And they like mend their friendship, and like Ariana talks about the fact that she like her dad had like passed away like the day that Kristen started like snooping around or something about the two of them, and like that, like all of a sudden like Kristen was like, it clicked for her of like what she was doing at the time that Ariana was like going through this like really traumatic time in her life, and so it like really helped them like resolve their relationship. They actually ended up being like quite close in the last couple of seasons, but like it took me going back and watching I think season 6 and 7 to be able to remember that at all, because it was just like gone from my brain.
Yeah, same. No, that's interesting. Yeah, so funny enough, she appears to be pretty much friends with everyone again.
Love that for her.
And I tried to like do some research, and like I don't understand like how that happened or when that happened, because like at the end of this reunion, they were very much not friends.
Yeah.
They even like, so along with a lot of like, you know, deals and things that they had lost along with the firing, Witches of WeHo, like Katie, Stassi, and Kristen had actually launched like a wine line in 2019 called Witches of WeHo. And then so that was pulled, and apparently is back now. But now with just Katie and Kristen. I think Stassi's not a part of it anymore.
Yeah, Stassi was too controlling to work with her best friends, unfortunately.
Like, oh, really?
That's what comes out. It comes out in season 8 that she's like, yeah, I can't do this. I can't work with you guys because I need to have like ultimate control over everything.
That's fair. That seems like on brand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess she's now like very close with Brittany, and she's close with Kristen, and she is Christian, so I guess she's close with herself.
I love that for her.
Yeah. Katie,
we should all be so lucky.
yeah. Katie, Lala, like Sheena,
Yeah.
Jax, except for sometimes Jax blocks her, and we don't know why. Just
Fair enough.
as he does. I think she's still like friends with Stassi, but I think they both come out and said that it's not really like the same. But I think she went to like Stassi's birthday, like her 35th birthday at her, like her live show.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, so I think everyone is like kind of back to being friends. She also might be in this Valley Village show, not really in some capacity.
Yeah.
But she's actually been up to more than I thought. So she wrote a book.
Ooh, love that for her.
Called He's Making You Crazy.
Love that. Amazing.
And I think it was like written by like the person who wrote like not 10 Things I Hate About You.
Like
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Or something like that, which I love.
What about He's Just Not That Into You? Could it be that person? That's also a really good book.
Maybe one of those.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the book existed until I heard her talk about it on her podcast.
That's
but
so cool.
Good for her.
I love that. Yeah.
And now she started a podcast with her recent boyfriend. Actually, his name is Luke. They only started dating in 2022, I think. It's called Sex, Love, and What Else Matters.
Oh wow, that's a very recent relationship to already have a podcast together.
I know.
We've known each other longer than that.
much longer than that. We're like a decade old in our friendship.
7 years. It's crazy.
But yeah, she has this podcast. Honestly, like I think she put it out in November. Then like Scandal broke like a few months later, and like it like skyrocketed because she was the only cast member or like ex-cast member who wasn't under like NDA, could speak freely about it. So I think like she really benefited from this, because now like I feel like I still will tune into her podcast sometimes.
Amazing.
And she also apparently is on a new reality show called The Goat, which is it's from like Amazon Freevee, which apparently is formerly IMDb TV. I literally don't know. I feel like I don't know what any of that means.
I've
that's
never heard these words. Okay, cool.
But Jill Zarin
must be an American
is on
thing.
it.
Oh, cool. I love Jill Zarin.
Yeah. And some people from like The Bachelor and Love Is Blind, and even I think I saw some people from The Challenge, but they were like OG so Challenge, and I didn't know.
Love it.
It says reality TV personalities compete for the title of GOAT. So they compete in physical, mental, and social tasks.
Damn, love it.
And then also we know that like not related to these people, but like Tom Schwartz was on the show called like the Mars thing.
Mars one, Life on Mars.
Life on Mars or something, and then
Stars on Mars.
Stars on Mars and Life on Mars. And
well, Sandoval just on a reality
Sandoval's
TV show
on one
too?
like Special Forces or something. Like what are all these random shows that are coming up?
Oh, interesting. They're branching out.
But yeah, I feel like this is not the last we're gonna see of Kristen.
No,
like
I don't
Jax,
think so.
I think she is kind of coming back in some capacity, and
we'll get to see what her next chapter is going to be. So excited.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that very nicely brings us to Miss Stassi Schroeder. Stassi Schroeder, who was famously like the first cast member of Vanderpump Rules, right? Like I feel like I'm gonna give it to her. She's the queen of Vanderpump Rules. She like
100%.
She started this show. Like
Stassi, it's my birthday, Schroeder.
Exactly. Like had she not been as chaotic as she was in season 1, I don't think we would have gotten to season 2 necessarily.
Oh, 100%. And we've already talked about like her confessionals and like just like how messy she was.
Yeah,
no one would want to see it now, but then it was, it was chef's kiss.
It was incredible. Yeah, it would be like called cyberbullying right now.
Yeah.
But back then it was just mean girl drama. Love it. Like it was great. But yeah, so Stassi was famously on season 1 to 8 of the show. She was technically deemed like a recurring character in season 4, but honestly, like the level of drama, she's not in the first half of the season, but she comes in for the season, like the second half of the season. She's like literally the star of the what is it called, the mid-season trailer. Like the mid-season trailer is like exclusively Stassi. So for somebody who's only like a recurring character, like A, they talk about her the first half the entire time, and B, she takes up the entire second half. So like I don't see how she could ever just be considered recurring, but alas, not my bridge to die on. Hill to die on, bridge to what climb? I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, so Stassi famously was with Jax at the very beginning of this show. We last see her in season 8 when she's dating and then becomes engaged to her boyfriend slash fiance, Beau Clark, who I absolutely loved. He himself was on season 7 and season 8. He was just like a recurring cast member in the first season, that season 7, and then he was promoted to a full-time cast member in season 8. And unfortunately, the last that we see of them is at that reunion. And yeah, as you say, like they basically, I think they actually technically got fired like in between the airing of Reunion Part 2 and Reunion Part 3. So like we're watching them kind of like talk about their relationship and like all of these things like while they've already been like
You're
axed from
right.
Bravo. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, because I think it was also really messy. Because then like we find out that Max and Brett had also been fired for some like racially insensitive tweets or that they had written a few years back. But like on the show, you see Lisa Vanderpump basically forgiving that.
Yeah, well, and I think that they were hoping that what Max and Brett were going to be able to do is they were going to be able to kind of like apologize adequately, and it would kind of like help, you know, keep them on the show. But either like just like kind of like the time that it was like taking place during, it was just too like controversial to kind of keep them on the show. They also probably didn't test well. Like
I don't think they tested well at all.
How amazing their apology had been. Like I don't know if it would have kept them on the show anyways. But yeah, you're right. Like watching Lisa Vanderpump being like, okay, you have been dubbed, like you are no longer you're fine, you're free to go. And it's like, oh no, you're actually free to go, you're off the show, bye.
Yeah, we meant that you're free to leave, like you're actually free to
go, get out of here. Go home. Yeah, so that's unfortunately the last that we see of Stassi and Beau, but it's certainly not the last of them in general, right? Like Stassi very much kind of like has rebounded from this firing. I think she's come back kind of like bigger and stronger than ever. Like maybe she's not as like big or whatever as she was before, but she's relaunched her own podcast, and she must have been able to keep like the IP or whatever, because after she got dropped from Bravo, she got dropped from her PR agency, she got dropped from her like podcast label, so like all of that was gone. But then she relaunched her podcast last year in 2022, so she must have been able to retain the IP rights for it. So that's good. I did smart business advice out there in the world. And then Beau and her also started their own podcast as well, called The Good, the Bad, and the Baby, which is obviously about their like journey, kind of like becoming parents, having Hartford, who I think was born in like January 2021. So I think the podcast came out like a couple months after that. And that's like a Patreon exclusive where like it's behind a paywall. Like you can't get it unless you're willing to pay for it.
Right.
Which I appreciate that, like get that bag. But yeah, so that's kind of the last that we've seen them, and that's kind of what they're up to now. They are expecting an additional child. Another little baby is on its way, a little baby boy. So that I guess he'll be born like probably soonish. Like I don't know, this summer, this fall.
I'd imagine. I think she's like pretty pregnant, and she's doing her tours, right? As well. Yeah. Oh my god, some of the videos coming out of the tour is super cute. Like I think they had Hartford up, like her daughter for her 35th birthday, and she was like singing Frozen like on stage.
Oh yeah, that's horrible. So cute. I love it. It was so fun looking back at like all these people and just like all these times on Vanderpump Rules. The show has just been like so iconic and incredible and like given us so much. Like
I know. It's just been such a roller coaster too that like I think I've actually rewatched season 1 at least 3 times, and even every boy watch I like forget something and I'm like, oh my god, this was so crazy. Like I can't believe how crazy this was. Yeah. And now hearing you talk about some of the other seasons that I've fully just forgotten, I'm like, I need to go back and watch those now.
Right. Oh my god. Yeah. Season 4 is like one in particular that I feel like I kind of like blocked out of my brain. And that's definitely one I think like I'm going to go back and like watch a little bit more of, just because it was Brittany's first season. I think, was it technically Schwartz's first season as a full-time cast member? Or maybe it was James's first season as a full-time cast member.
I want to say Schwartz came in season 3, but I think
you're right. I think season 3 he was officially like a full-time.
That was the Ring on a String.
Ring on a String season. Oh, Nelly.
it's just given us so much
Yeah.
Vanderpump Rules. We know this was a little bit longer of an episode, we tried to keep it in the 1 hour slot
as much as humanly possible.
just had too much to say. If you made it to the end with us, like, let us know. I don't know what you should say to tell us that you're here. Be like,
Well,
I
let us
made
know.
it or something.
Or like let us know if there's any cast members that like we left off that you guys want us to like do another little deep dive into, because there's definitely a whole bunch that like we wanted to get into, but we were just like, it's too much, it's too long, it's already going to be an hour long anyway, so we might as well. But yeah, so if there's anybody else that you think was missing, love to hear that. And
we could do a part 2.
A little interesting deep dive.